This is Kit Kabinet with a comparison review of the Supermodel and the sword Reggiane 2001 in 1/72 scale. Okay, it's been a while since I've done a review, so I'm going to do a double one. Actually, they're the same plane. The Reggiane 2001, sorry to my Italian viewers, or the Reggiane 2001. And I have two kits here, one from Supermodel and one from Sword. And I'm going to do two reviews, one of each, and then compare them a bit. Let's have a look inside. Okay, so here we have the sprues of the Supermodel kit. Start with that one first. It's the older one of the two. You can already see it here if you watch closely that it does have raised panel lines. And the rest of the detail is also a bit simple. It's a pretty old kit, this one. But the exhaust pipes, they're like molded solid on here. The hinge line of the rudder is very heavy. It's the same, by the way, on the elevators. So it's a bit of a crude kit to modern standards. The prop hub is also a bit clunky. Very simple bomb here. The prop looks the right diameter. And there's like hardly no interior in here at all. So this is a very basic kit. Here's the other sprue with the wheel wells. Wings again, very heavy lines here around the flaps and the elevators. You do get a pilot though. And the wheels, they look okay. A bit basic, but okay. So this is a very simple kit, but I compared this to a couple of drawings from Ali d'Italia Part 3. And actually the shape and the size is quite alright. So it's not a horrid kit, but the detail is like really a bit outdated. And yeah, for a cockpit you only get this blank seat, and that's it. You might want to add a lot of detail to bring this up to modern standards. Transparency, you only get the canopy, that's it. It is nice and clear. A little bit of distortion here at the top, but it's, yeah, that's logical. It's a bit thick, but it looks okay. And what they also used to add was a nice stand. Yeah. The decal sheet. They're nicely in register, these decals. They have a sort of a matte finish. And the decal film is not entirely covering everything. So here's something in that little 4 there that falls outside of the film, so that's a bit of a bummer. And these national markings seem to be okay though. The instructions, it's just a couple of exploded views, and it's not a very difficult kit to build. So, oh, and here are your paint schemes. You get to build 2 versions, and they're both in the same camo scheme, like green uppers and grey lower surfaces. So that was the Supermodel Reggiane 2001. A very old kit, and it's still, yeah, okay-ish. But let's now watch the sword kit, how that compares. Now here we have the sword kit. And it's just one big sprue. This part has already come off, but we have another wing half here. Now here you'll see recessed panel lines. And that's very nice. And you also immediately see that the details are much finer. Some extra small panels here. Let's see if you can actually see that on the video. The hinge lines look much more realistic, not so deeply engraved as in the Supermodel kit. You actually get a nice proper seat here, a top seat. Prop is about the same diameter, and you get a cockpit here, instrument panel, a floor. So this one's much more complete than the Supermodel one. The exhaust holes are open. You get resin ones for those. I'll show them in a minute. And also what you see here is there's actually an interior molded in here. So this looks way better, way nicer. And you have all the parts you need. You have a better shaped bomb. Some nice wheels here. And everything looks just nicer detailed. So in that case, you'd think that the sword kit takes the cake. There are also some resin parts in this kit. Now you have some nice extra wheels here. There are in fact wheels molded onto the sprue in plastic, but they have a slight sink marks there, and that's probably because it's a thicker part, and these things are short run and injected under a lower pressure, so sink marks occur in thicker parts with that type of molding technology. But you do get some replacement resin wheels, which look very nice, very nicely detailed. And also, like, the exhausts, of course. So look, yeah, they're nice and hollowed out as well. They look really good. And also, what you get is a gun sight, a nice reflector gun sight. But of course, the transparent part isn't on there. And what they say in these instructions, which I will show in a minute, is that you should scratch build the reflector glass. And I have a little tip for that. If you, it will appear somewhere in screen over here. The transparencies. Now these are very finely molded and very clear. It looks very good. You get basically two versions. One is the full canopy closed, and with this, because the Reggiane canopy had a hinge in the middle, you can make an open cockpit, an open canopy as well. And they also have an extra piece of armored glass, basically, to put on the front of the windscreen. It depends, of course, on which version you're going to build. I would recommend to not to glue this thing fast, because it will most likely fog over immediately, but instead to make it stick to your canopy. Maybe you can use some alclad or something, or you can also use some crystal clear for that, but I wouldn't use glue for that, because it will most likely fog over and then get in between everything. So this is a tricky part to mount on there. Just be advised. The instructions with a nice story, nice picture of the box, etc. Sprue map and everything. You could get a much more step-by-step instructions than the Supermodel kit. This one's of course a bit more complicated. You get the resins parts that you need to glue with cyanoacrylate glue, because normal modeling glue won't stick. You have this very nicely detailed cockpit, so you know where all the parts have to go. Some instructions there. Decals, that's for in a minute. And here's that canopy, that open canopy part, how to mount that. Your general arrangement drawing here, and the versions that you can build. Number 1, number 2, nice squiggly smoke ring camouflage here, and this again in the dark green and light grey scheme. Yes, the decal sheet. Yeah, the decals look very, very, very extremely thin. It's almost as if there's, yeah, I can see the film. It's hardly visible. It's very close to the actual print, so these decals should be very nice, but yeah, they're probably not the easiest decals to apply because they look very thin. I have worked with Techmod. Sword has several kits with Techmod, the newer Techmod decals, and they're very nice but very thin. So you have to be very careful. They have the tendency to fold, and you have to be very careful when applying them. But they look good. Okay, and now to compare the two, the slightly bluish plastic is of course the sword kit, and the mid-gray ones are the Supermodel ones. So if you compare some parts like the prop, they're about similar in size, like if you can see here. Maybe the sword kit looks a bit sharper, but nothing a file can't solve. The difference in bombs though is like terrible. These Supermodel bombs look like, yeah, like toys, so not very good. And I've clipped a couple of parts off so I can make some closer comparisons between the kits. So what you in fact see here, they are actually pretty close in dimensions. Not a lot of difference, like, oh my god, or so it seems. And also if you compare the wings, they're actually again pretty close. Yeah, again you can see the really deep lines here on the Supermodel kit, and the very fine lines of the sword kit. So there's a very big difference. The sword kit seems to take the cake. And here we can compare the fuselage parts with each other, with this nice interior here, and I'll just align the cockpits, and see here, if we align the cockpits, that they actually follow the same line as well. The rudder of the sword kit is a bit beefier, but what's this? There's quite a big difference here in the nose. The sword kit is, say, what would I say? About 3.5 millimeters shorter, or the Supermodel kit is 3.5 millimeters longer. But they're not exactly the same length in the engine cowling. So who's right? Well, according to some drawings that I checked, like in Ali d'Italia Part 3, the Supermodel kit actually comes closer to those drawings. Now, of course, not all drawings in the world are correct, but most drawings that I checked too, seem to agree with the old Supermodel kit. So did sort maybe make a small goof here in the length, because the rest of the kit looks exquisite, and it would be a bit of a bummer if they messed up in that part. But I don't know. I don't know for sure who is right. What I do know is that there is a difference there. Well, well, well. What a predicament. Now, in the end, the sword kit looks very, very nice. The nose thing is yeah, it can go either way. Which one is right? I don't know. For the rest, this is a very nice kit, but it's also very difficult to get hold of. It took me about 5 years by searching online on second-hand markets to get this one second-hand. So it's really difficult to find this one nowadays. Maybe Sword eventually will reissue a new batch, but I wouldn't hold my breath for that. And the other one, this one, the Supermodel one, well, we've seen it. It's a bit long in the tooth, old kit. You need to do a lot of work to get it to, well, this standard. But they're much easier to find. They're not super common, but you can still find these kits. So would it be worthwhile to upgrade a Supermodel kit to this standard? Maybe that's an idea for another video.